night, everybody. How are you guys doing? Welcome to another edition of Entrepreneurship in Focus. I've missed you guys last week. I know some of you guys were inquiring what happened to the show, but last week I was in Suriname speaking at a launch of a business event. One Shot International had me over there in Suriname, and I was speaking at their launch on behalf of Guyana. Notwithstanding, I miss you guys as well. You guys miss us, we miss one another. Thank you guys for all of the excitement, for the interest in entrepreneurship in focus. I look forward to connecting with you, our audience. I see some regular persons online. We've got Afros, we've got Camille, we've got Amit, and all of the regular supporters of Entrepreneurship in Focus. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our program this evening. This evening, it is our pleasure to be here. We've got a special guest who is a Guyanese who is joining us from the New York. He is joining us via Zoom. We're going to be interacting with him shortly. Allow me to just take the opportunity to welcome you guys once more to our program. I see Faithful truly joining. Welcome each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule to be here. Remember, we are on every Tuesday night from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Remember to share the live stream. Remember to comment, ask questions, interact with all of the persons that are coming here so that we all can have a grand time learning and growing together. As together we win. Pleasant good evening, Sancha. Good evening, Radhika. Yes, we've got a special guest in studio from online, of course, joining from New York. His name is Antoine Craigwell. He's most excited to be on our program as well, and I'm seeing he's smiling brightly. Hello, Antoine. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Marlon, and it's a pleasure to be part of your program this evening. Together we win, together in focus, entrepreneurs in focus, and I think this is an extraordinarily important title for your program, to focus in on key issues in our communities, especially for businesses. So I think that, inviting to be part of this program allows me to help businesses, business owners, vendors, employees, and staff to be able to focus in on a key issue that impacts all our lives and certainly impacts businesses.
Awesome, and I'm very happy that you take time off to come because mental health is very much important within our society. It is something that is receiving lots of attention right now because of the amount of mental illnesses that are popping up. And I want to be able to prepare our entrepreneurs and our businesses to be able to interact with persons who are suffering from mental illness, understand what signs they can look for and how they can create an atmosphere that is welcoming and that is conducive towards learning and growth and development. So, first of all, let us understand what is mental health.
So, mental health is the simple answer to that is that mental health is simply the ability to live one's life without any stress, without and be able to maintain healthy relationships and be able to engage in daily activities without any worry. Simply
Interesting.
put, that is your mental health.
Well, listening to the definition alone and being in Guyana, I'm wondering if any of us can achieve true mental health because he's living without
Aha!
stress or so on.
It's possible, even living in Guyana with all the stresses that people are dealing with. Because once you learn a couple of tools, you can then be able to manage your mental health over time. Okay? So it's possible. And there is a misconception to think that if you're affected by mental illness, that you're mad, you're crazy, you're no good, you're no good to society, you're no good to your family. However, you could have a mental illness and overcome that mental illness through care, through treatment, through therapy. Okay? So it's possible to overcome these things.
Okay, so I learned that you're a mental health crusader. What sparked your interest to work in the field of mental health?
That's a bit of an involved question. Um, some of you may have seen the video that I did, the podcast that I did early, that was released late last week, that talked about some of my personal journey. Some of my journey included growing up in New Amsterdam and as a child going into the mental hospital with my mother. So seeing mentally ill patients or people and wondering what's going on in their minds. Um, and then later on, in religious life, I was a Jesuit, so I was a member of the Roman Catholic Church and the Society of Jesus, which is a religious order in the church. And as part of my work, after I had taken my first vows, part of my work was providing spiritual direction. So it was using the Ignatian spirituality and some aspects from the Bible to be able to provide guidance for people in their daily lives. But then, many years later, following a suicide attempt and recognizing that there weren't very many opportunities for mental health resources for Black people, that I decided back in 2010, between 2008 and 2010, I started working to put together a book of stories of people who've been struggling with mental illness. And out of that, I produced a documentary, started an organization, which this year celebrates 10 years. So you can see the logo for the organization behind me.
Congratulations.
So the organization DBGM, okay, the organization DBGM, you can find it on the website, dbgm.org. So the organization started in 2013, and this year we celebrate 10 years. And over the years, we have started a conference, which this year will be our 9th annual conference. We started an Ancestral Institute. We do groups for men and for women. So there's a lot that we do. Plus, I have a documentary that I've screened twice in Guyana, and it was shown at Carifest in Suriname, I think back in 2013 or 14, something like that.
So mental health has been around for quite some time, or it is something, based on what I'm gathering, is it something that is new to our society?
Mental health, so I put it to you like this, Marlon, that as long as humans have walked the face of the earth, we've always struggled with mental illness.
Interesting.
The difference, though, is that our ancestors had refined ways and means of taking care of each other. So you know, as Guyanese, if you got an old aunt or a grandmother or an old cousin or family member, and you're living with them or they're living with you, and you say, well, man, I ain't feeling too good, you know, something, and she will say, all right, hold on. And she take a little bit of teasum, a little bit of sweet broom, a little bit of toyo, piece of lemongrass, 2 orange peel, and boil it up. I said, drink this and go catch your bed. You drink it and you're going to catch your bed. Next morning you wake up, you're feeling good. And you say, the old girl still got your touch, right? But the difference, though, is that the old girl it was passed down to her from her grandmother. And passed on from generation to generation. So she knew how much of this and how much of that and what. So our families knew how to take care of each other. And so those of us in our communities today who still have old people, go and ask them. Go and ask them what you just do if you get a little bit of stomach problem. Are you having a headache? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling too stressed? Are you not sleeping well? Okay? But I will have one caution, though, Marlon, is that if you're taking prescribed medication, you can't be taking the bush tea at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So check with the doctor to make sure that bush tea you're going to be drinking is going to work with the medication you're taking if you're taking medication.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the bush tea can work against the medication you're taking, either make it too stronger or weaken its effect. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to check with your doctor. If you're not taking medication, you might try a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So how do I, as a person, be able to recognize signs of mental illness within myself? Because before we go to anybody else, we must look at ourselves. How do I recognize mental illness within myself?
So let's okay. So I'm glad that you asked that question because someone who is struggling with serious mental illness is someone who has a disability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and a disability that's comparable to somebody who has relapsed multiple sclerosis or someone who is quadriplegic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've been around with me to different places where we went in Guyana for the mental health workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And you recognize that a lot of people don't know what quadriplegic is.
Mm-hmm.
So a paraplegic is somebody who does not have access or use of any two limbs. So it could be the two legs or the two arms. A quadriplegic, which quad means four, is somebody who from their neck down are paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to do everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, someone who's struggling with mental illness is like a person with quadriplegia. You
Okay.
have to do everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing though. You see somebody with quadriplegia in a wheelchair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say that person's got a disability, right? So you treat them differently. But somebody who's struggling with mental illness may not show that they have a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, since most of your audience are business owners, employees in businesses, clients in these businesses, or even vendors who supply and service these businesses, then we all need to understand what does mental illness look like. And sometimes you really can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you, for example, just asked the question, what would it look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. It depends on what's going on. It depends on what's going on in your life. It depends on how you're feeling. It depends on, so did you get enough sleep last night?
Mm-hmm.
Have you had something to eat? Have you been to the bathroom? Okay. Are you stressing and worrying over something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you feeling anxious? Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm a client, if I'm a customer, and I come to you, Marlon, and you are running this business, and I ask you to get something for me, okay, and you're taking a little long time to get it, I'm standing there, I might start sweating bad. Yes, I know the place hot,
Mm-hmm.
but I might be sweating even more than normal, okay?
Yes.
Or I might start shaking. Or you might come back and say to me, boy, sorry, we ain't got it, we're going to get it next week. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And for no reason at all, I fly off at you. Oh, you mean you don't got it? And I go off just like that. Okay? Because what you may not understand, that you may not know, is that when I came to see you to get this product or this service, I may have been dealing with a whole lot of stuff beforehand. So coming to see you, I'm coming with all of that in my mind. And so you telling me that you're going to get it till next week, or you don't got it now, that may be the last thing that I'm prepared to hear. Okay?
Interesting.
And I can take off.
I'm very happy that you were able to share some light on that aspect. And I remember working in an environment and I was just not motivated. Every single time I thought about going into that organization, I wanted to drive past that place. Sometimes I left home very early in the morning and I just go in the afternoon because I want to be everywhere else except that environment. I remember even going to the doctor to ask him if there's anything that he can give me so that I can generate happy hormones or feelings because I just didn't want it to go there. When I tell you that the organization was toxic, it was. And I'm very happy for this kind of session because there are persons who may be in similar kind of position within their respective organizations and they're wondering what to do. How do I get out? How do I create an atmosphere? I help to influence. And that is why we're having these kind of discussions because even so, there are entrepreneurs who are thinking, wow, this is it. I'm at the end of the road. What am I doing? Is it making sense? Am I on the right path? My family members, all of the bills and everything are affecting me. How do I survive? So there are things like that affecting persons. Yes, you want to say something?
I'm listening to what you're saying, and there are two things that are jumping out from what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
One is I am grateful that we're having this conversation, and I think it needs to happen a lot more often
Mm-hmm.
because we've got to regularize the conversation about mental illness and about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second thing is about your experience about not wanting to go into that job, to that work. And I know that there are many Guyanese right now who dread the thought of going into that office that they work in. And they're only going because for the paycheck, they gotta pay rent, they gotta pay fees for the children, they gotta get food, they gotta do this, they gotta do. And if it wasn't for that, they would not go in that place.
Mm-hmm.
Because here is the thing, that's the problem. In a business environment, it's all about the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the bottom line. And so, unfortunately, the employees are products to service that bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the owners sometimes, because of their business plans, because they might have a mortgage to pay, or a loan to pay off, or investors to satisfy, that they need to keep the bottom line. They need to keep a healthy bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will push their employees, and sometimes unreasonably, they will push their employees and put a lot of pressure on their employees. There's a problem with that kind of infrastructure because it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So you will find businesses like those will have high turnovers. So they will constantly be recycling their employees. They'll be in and out, in and out, in and out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the employees will continue to find that this is a stressful environment. So what is needed to be able to get to a middle ground? First of all, it talks about planning. So it means, does the business have a business plan or a strategic plan
Mm-hmm.
for how it's going to operate
Mm-hmm.
with its goals and objectives, and that these are measurable over time? Are the employees involved in the decision, in some of the decision making, so that the employees know, well, this is why we're doing X, Y, and Z, and this is the outcome we're looking for? Are the employees being made to work too many shifts or too many hours? Are employers making demands on employees' time without the employees having time to rest? So let's also have a conversation about Guyana's labor laws.
Mm-hmm.
How many legally allowed to have as your rest? Okay? And if you're going to work overtime, it must be your decision to choose as an employee whether you work overtime or not. Your employer should not be able to want to force you to work overtime. You have the choice to do that. But here's the thing. If the employer does not respect you and is concerned about you as an individual, then there's going to be a lot of stress and pressure on you. Now, prior to being on this Zoom tonight, you and I had a conversation about perhaps getting to the point where an employer might be willing to extend to their employees a mental health day, so that an employee can take a day off from work and say, you know what, I can't deal with the stress and coming into work today, so I need to take a day off. And to get to the point where that day off, the employee is not penalized for that day. They're not short pay. They're not made to take it as a sick day or as a vacation day. And when we talked about it earlier, you raised the example of somebody who may call in and say they're taking a mental health day, then they are seen shopping at Giftland. Okay? It's possible. It's possible. Because for some people, that can be a form of therapy. Okay? But then for others, retail shopping could become an addiction. So there's a careful balance between therapy and addiction, and it's easy to cross over. So like in America, for example, because you have many people with credit cards, and you will go and spend credit because you ain't got the money right there and then. You go and spend on a credit card and you just go shopping. Okay? Which is almost similar to gambling addiction. So I know now that Ghana has casinos. People will go to casinos and it can develop into an addiction. Okay? And that's another issue that needs to be addressed, because if people are going to the casino and they're staying up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning gambling and losing money that they would need to find that money to pay their rent or their mortgage or their car note, and then they're going to be late for work because they're not getting to sleep, and they're late for work, and then when they get to work, they're not able to concentrate. So their boss going to shout at them. Other employees who are depending on them going to look at them, and treat them, make comments. They may end up losing their job. Okay? And when they lose their job, then very shortly after they lose their apartment or their house. Okay? Their wives may move out and leave the children. You understand? So there are series of things that cascade and happen, and they often feed into a cycle. So as a customer coming into an enterprise or a business, it's about understanding where each person is coming from. As an employer, interacting with employees is being able to recognize when your employees are having a hard time. But we also have to remember that some employers, some business owners may themselves be struggling with their mental illness. They may be themselves struggling with mental health issues. There's ways to act out when they're struggling with mental health issues. So if the employer, the business owner, is struggling with stress because they got to meet a deadline and they don't have all the materials and they don't have all the work done and money's on the line, and if they don't meet this deadline, they will lose money, and it all builds up. Okay? And as it builds up, then they takes it out, then they slice. They start shouting at them and using insulting language.
Somebody was
Now
asking
the
a
employee may
question.
not be like, what did I do to deserve?
Somebody was asking a question on our previous shows. What happens when employees are taking many sick days and they're taking long breaks and lunch and stuff? What can they do from an employer's perspective?
Well, the employer needs to ask the employee a question. Sit them down quietly and ask them a question about a couple of things. One is, What is your commitment to this job? Okay? If you're just coming to work for the sake of coming to work and you're not vested in the job, you're not interested in the job, then why even bother come? Why, it's just for the paycheck on Friday? Okay? Or at the end of the month? Go find another job. But if the person has an interest in the job, then there may be something else going on in that person's life that's causing them to be distracted, that is causing them to want to avoid being in that space. So if the employer has a relationship with the employees, that he or she can sit down with the employee and say, can you tell me what is going on? How are you feeling? What is happening in your life that prevents you from engaging with your job the way that you should? And the employee may have a legitimate grievance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The employee may have some experience of something that may have happened or that may have been said in the job or by the employer that he or she took offense to, but was never really able to express and say, well, this is how I feel. So the other thing is, does the employer encourage open communication in the workplace? Or is the employer operating like a colonialist slaveholder? What I say goes. Okay? Do employers use methodology like the white slave owners used to use, which was divide and conquer and pit one employee against the other to see how they can get the best results? Those kind of dynamics in a work environment set up a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are faced with too much stress that they cannot manage or they don't feel that they have the power to address, they will step away. They
But
will
Antoine,
avoid it
I've
because
received
it
several
really and
complaints
truly
from
upsets
colleagues
them.
who would say that they would have implemented several strategies to be able to reach out effectively to employees to get them to come to a point where they all work together towards the mission and vision of the organization. One of them even said on several occasions, all of the new employees who would come, he would sit down with them and show them how they can grow as the business grew and how parts of the business can belong to them and create an environment for the young people to grow. But their mentality, their mindset when they come to the work organization, is least much to be desired. When they come to work their own time, they do their own thing. When you talk to them, they have an attitude, they want to be on their phone all the time. And it's as if they finding good people to work with is a challenge, and that is something that is lacking within our society, and I'm getting these complaints from several of my business colleagues. What do you suggest, or what can you comment on about that matter?
I would suggest that first of all, business owners need to set up what is called an administrative infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
with a policy handbook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That you're this, and so each employee, when they're hired, they are given a copy of the policy manual.
Mm-hmm.
And the policy manual clearly states these are your working hours from this time to this time, with a break from this time to that time for lunch. Okay? That you are to be at your desk or at your station for however. So they need to clearly state and lay it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it may also again come back to communication. If when somebody is being hired, they are not told very clearly what are the expectations for the position they're being hired for, then they are going to assume they're going to assume and do whatever they feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because it has not been clearly defined. So unless it's clearly defined, then the employee is going to do and think that they can do whatever they want when they want. And the employee is going to be like, but you're not doing anything and it's not what I wanted. And no, clearly state what your roles and responsibilities are. And any deviation from those roles and responsibilities without approval can mean sanctioning, including probation. Okay?
Yeah,
Nobody wants to lose a job.
I don't think you quite understand, because these same employees, they're not concerned about rules, regulations, how much time you write them up or so on, because when they come to work and they
Environment
come
we live in
late,
today is
and
a society we live
you were
in.
to say to them you're late, they will say to you, if it's a problem I can go back home. What then do you do? Because there's no seriousness or urgency, or they don't understand the importance of the job, and the importance of their role. So what I would
So it
normally
may be
say to my
necessary.
colleagues is, when you look at the person's application, you're able to understand the kind of person that is coming into your organization, and you can be able to predict some of the challenges they will bring. Because I don't expect to see
Well,
somebody
the
with,
other thing is,
uh-huh, go on.
that when you look at a person's resume, you guys you call it a CV in Ghana, and a CV and a resume are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the person's resume, you look at their previous job.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to the previous job and find out why is it they're no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of like doing your due diligence, doing some background checking on the person. For example, I met you at the Artichoke Convention Center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we started to work and collaborate together.
Mm-hmm.
I asked people about you.
Mm-hmm.
I did some of my own background work about you,
Mm-hmm.
so that I know what kind of person I'll be associating with.
Okay.
Okay? Similarly, for a colleague, for an employer, they need to do the background. That is why you have human resources department. And if you don't have a human resources department, then it is the duty of the employer to call and check on the person's previous employment to find out what kind of employee this person was, and why is it they're no longer working there, and more importantly, would that previous employer be willing to hire this person again?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a little bit of a
Interesting.
trick question. Because if the previous employer says, no, we will not hire him again, you know that you don't want to hire him either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the employee comes to work the first month, they are punctual. The first month, they coming to open up the business. How they so early, and they're staying a little bit too late, and they're looking, and they're really engaged. But by the third month, okay, at least 90 days after they start, you start noticing shifts in behavior. You start noticing, they call you, I'm running a little late, I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm stuck in traffic. I'm not feeling well, but I'm at the hospital. I'll be coming in at lunchtime. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It begins to establish a pattern. You need to sit down and have a conversation with that employee to find out what has changed. Because when they started working, they want to prove themselves to you that they're the best employee, that it was a good decision you made to hire them.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 months later, their behavior started to change. So you need to sit down with that employee. This is not the time to guess. This is not the time to speculate.
Okay.
This is not the time to ask other employees, you know why she coming late? You know why she ain't coming in on time? You know why? No. Because if you ask other employees, they are going to tell you what they think they want you to know. Because if they can get rid of that one person, it means that they get more money. Because they may have to work a little harder, but they get rid of one person. You understand?
Okay, I understand.
So you need to sit down with that person and ask them, what has changed in your life? And mention to them, look, I've observed that when you started working here 3 months ago, you were committed to this job. You were here even before I could get here to open business. And you were staying after I had left in the evenings. What changed?
Mm-hmm.
And listen to what they're saying. Because something dramatic changed. that caused this change in behavior?
Mm-hmm.
Something changed. Is there something going on in their personal lives at home? Could they be dealing with a mental issue? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or did something in the job that makes them feel that they don't want to be there anymore? So they
So,
start withdrawing.
what would you now recommend for persons to cultivate a mindset that would ask these kind of questions about an employee?
How do you mean?
All right. We don't have persons, employers, supervisors asking these questions on a day-to-day basis when an employee starts coming late and being delinquent and not doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. So what can we do now to create a mindset that entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, the supervisors will now say, all right, let me try a different approach to reach out to this employee and see what happens.
One of the things, one of the things I used to do when I was in management, huh?
Go on.
One of the things I used to do when I was in management, um, in different jobs, is once a week, I would meet with each of my staff on a one-to-one basis to sit down and find out and talk with them to understand what is happening in their lives and how they feel about their jobs, and you know what they think can be done better, how they can improve, or if they have too much work to do, that they're feeling too stressed or overwhelmed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a check in with them once a week. Now, granted, I didn't have many staff and I was able to do that, but I set aside regularly every week. I will meet with each staff member during the week. At some point in time, we have an appointment, a standing appointment, that we would reserve a conference room or a quiet room, and just the two of us there, we sit down and we talk, and I get to understand what's going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that also with my current business, with my organization, is that I get to know the people I'm working with. Not personally, that I'm having a relationship with them. It's a relationship, yes, but it's a collaborative relationship. And so what I do is that I get to find out what else is going on in their lives, because then that informs me about what decisions I can make about how much I can rely on that person to do X, Y, and Z. So a lot of the work that I do with my organization, a lot of the people I work with are volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They are volunteering their time. So if they're volunteering their time, it means that they have other things going on in their lives. And if I can get to know what those other things are, then I know what percentage of their time they are giving to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know how much I can rely on them. I know what I can expect from them. I know what they're going to do, what they're not going to do, because I'm already familiar with what's going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, I may have one of my volunteers that's helping me plan my conference. And this volunteer is married. She has a daughter. She's working in another organization. Okay? She also does marriages. Okay? And she's got a whole full life going on. But yet, because she believes in what I am doing, she wants to be part of it and contribute to it. So I know exactly how much I can ask her, because I've listened to her and all the things she's got going on in her life, and I listen to what she's prioritizing. The first few things that she mentions, those are her priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then I am able to determine how much she's going to give to me. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So an employer may need to sit down with their employee and come to understand, where does their business fit in terms of the order of priority in that person's life. Okay?
Mm-hmm. So well, so some.
And I can quite understand, where you're saying that today, in today's work and business environment, you've got employees who may come in and coming in late and will make all kind of sarcastic comments like, yeah, I'm late, so what? You want me to go back home? And it's kind of a culture and a mind shift where we are today. That unfortunately, many of our younger people do not feel committed to jobs as they were before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because for many, they don't find any personal incentivization. They don't find any personal benefit from being in a job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They still, what they are unable to reconcile is the need for income to support the lifestyle that they want. But the lifestyle that they want to live doesn't allow them to come to work. So for them, that creates a conflict. And because they are unable to resolve that conflict, that they choose the more passive form, which is just simply to say, well, I'm not coming back into work. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you want me to come into work at 7, and 7 o'clock is when I'm now getting home. Okay? And I need to bathe, I need to sleep, I need to get something to eat, so I'm coming in at 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is not going to work for your business. That is not going to work for your business model. Because you then can't rely on that person to assume any responsibilities in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have to let that person go. But again, it comes back to the whole process of hiring and maintaining staff. It is the employer, the business owner, it is their business practice, standards for operating that becomes the criteria, that becomes the benchmark and the example for the employees. If the employees see that you've got a haphazard, confused, indecisive way of behaving, then the employees are going to have the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have the same don't care kind of attitude.
So in
You
other
understand?
words, our human resource policies and our occupational safety and health manuals need to account for our overall well-being and our mental health, not just the physical space to which we
That needs to
operate.
be included in it as well. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And just to back up on the
And so
question, you would have mentioned about the common thing that many people like to talk about is the mental day, the day where they take to go and cool their minds and stuff. How often do you think that should be given to an employee?
there is, you see, the question that you asked there about how often assumes that there's a measurement on somebody's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You can't measure that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We have to get to a place as a society where somebody can feel comfortable to come to you and say, Marlon, I am not well today, so I don't think I'll be able to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And Marlon must be able to say, okay, please let me know when you're going to be back. Okay?
Or what about having that person
Let me
when
know if
they're
there's
saying
anything.
that they're not well, visit a mental health specialist or a doctor or something, rather than you just coming and we're
You
taking it
can't,
word of mouth.
you cannot and you should not mandate that. You cannot and you should not mandate that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you then are assuming the role as if you could be a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
However, what you could do as an employer is, if you have a culture and a practice of meeting with your employees on a regular basis, so you know what's going on in that person's life, and then one day they say to you, I'm not going to be able to come in, I really don't feel too good to come in today. You must be able to say, well, I understand that you've got X, Y, and Z going on in your life. Please take care. And if you think you will need to speak to somebody professionally, I would strongly suggest you do. If you need help in finding someone, let me know and I will see what I can do to find somebody for you. And so it means that the employer will need to go that one extra step. Because here is why. If that employee hears that the employee is concerned about them, then the employee is going to feel that they are valued. If the employee does not feel valued and appreciated and that they belong to that job, they are not going to want to be there.
I
Okay?
understand
So
you, but
if
I
the
was once an
employer's business,
employee, and I remember personally, I had several excuses. One, I needed time off because my grandfather died. One, I wasn't feeling well. I'm getting a headache. I'm getting diarrhea, and all of these things.
yes,
And all of that is seen as time away from work, which is causing the organization uh, uh, loss of productive hours. So we still have to be mindful of persons abusing the system. And if you mention
there are
that,
people who are going to abuse the system, yes.
mm-hmm,
There are people who are going to abuse the system, and then so you need to have mechanisms in place to catch the abuse.
mm-hmm,
But you should not let those who are abusing the system make it bad for everybody else. Because it is possible that somebody could be abusing the system, and then another employee who is genuinely in need gets penalized because of previously bad experience from somebody else.
mm-hmm.
So each has to be dealt with on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Each has to be addressed individually.
So as we look at entrepreneurship and mental health, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are of the belief that as soon as you wake up, you must start working and it's the last thing you do before you sleep? You always have to be on the grind in order to survive. You always got to be thinking. You always got to be working around the clock.
Can you repeat the question? Because you
What
kind of
advice
dropped
would you
off.
give to entrepreneurs who are of the opinion that you have to be working around the clock? As soon as you wake up, you start working, and the last thing you do before you sleep?
That's called abuse.
Mm-hmm.
That is straight up abuse. And in many instances, it's illegal
Mm-hmm.
because you have to have a set work time. And as I understand it in Guyana, it's hours a day, 5 days a week, with another 4 hours on Saturday. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's at least 4 to 4 hours a week. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you are working or being made to work more time than that, then that is abuse.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, if the employee wants to work after their time, then they must be paid for it. Either paid for it or the cumulative time that they work, they can get it back in off days or vacation time. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But an employer should not be expecting their employees to come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. As a matter of fact, to be there at 7:30, to start work at 8, and then when they should be finished at 4, they are there at 5 and 5:30 and 6 o'clock still working
Mm-hmm.
because you expect them to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you want them to get stuff done. That then becomes abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So, in other
And
words, if I have work to be done after your prescribed work time, and it is very critical, I cannot dictate that you stay back to work. What if you never decide that you want to work beyond the call
no,
of duty?
no, that is that, and you see that, and there's a problem because if you need to ask the employee, are you able to work late? Are you able to stay and work for another 2 or 3 hours for us to get this shipment done or to get this job done? Okay? Remember, that employee has a life. That employee's life is not your life. Your job, that employee working with you, is only working with you for 8 hours, you know. The other 16 hours is their time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So the employee can choose whether they want to work or not. And
Mm-hmm.
there are some employees who will penalize employees who may choose not to want to work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, as an employer, you can't come and tell me at 3 o'clock that you want me to work late. That is abuse, and that is manipulative behavior.
Mm-hmm. This is
If
very
you were to
interesting,
say
you
to
know.
me, uh,
that is very interesting. It's a ticklish topic here.
yes, it's manipulative. It's manipulative abuse. Because if you're gonna tell me at 3 o'clock today that you want me to stay back and work until 8 o'clock tonight after I finish at 4 o'clock, that you want me to stay and work an additional 4 hours, that means that you have no regard for me, for my life, for how I feel, for what is going on in my life. All you're concerned about is your business.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were better organized as an employer, you can say to your employees on Monday morning when everybody comes into work, you know we've got this big project that we're working on that we need to get done. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I may ask some of you to work late, okay, during the course of this week. We have to get this done. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
As the work progresses, we will need to get stuff done. Some of you may need to work a little late. How late? Maybe what? An additional 4 hours? 5 hours. I will provide you with dinner, and after a while, I will help to get you transportation to go home. So you don't have to struggle with going to Starbrook Market car park to get a minibus at 9 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Good. So what you just did in that statement on Monday morning is that you said to your employees, I have a major project that needs to get done, and I need your help. And here is what I will do to assist you to help me. I will pay you overtime. I will provide you with some food, and I will provide you with transportation to go home. That's one. But it also says to the employee that I am being regarded and I'm being valued, because then the employee can then make arrangements during the week to accommodate them being able to work late. So they may be able to get somebody on Tuesday or Wednesday to go and pick up their children from school. They may be able to get somebody to stay with the children at home. They may be able to get somebody to go and stay with the person that they've been looking after, if it's an old family member or a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They may be able to, if they're in rehearsals for some production or something that they're doing, they may be able to call and say, look, I have to work late on Wednesday. I'm going to learn my parts, for example, if it's a performance or a play, I'm going to learn my parts, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay? So that the employee is able to also plan their lives. But if the employee is going to assume that the employee is at their disposal, then the employer should not be surprised that the employee is going to want to walk away from that abuse, because that is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're
And I know that,
saying, but I see that this particular topic has stimulated some discussions within our Facebook chat. Particularly, I'm seeing Shireen and Shelly that are very active within our comment section, and some are agreeing, some are disagreeing because for instances where employees choose that no time they want to work overtime because they always got something to do, then what position that leaves the organization? And again, we're
it talks
looking at
about,
a
but
win-win
but it
situation for everybody.
no, because here's the thing, Marlon, is that if the employer does not have a constructive business plan, is and it's organized, then there is going to be chaos, and then there's going to be this abuse. The employer needs to get their act together. Okay, they need to structure their business properly.
I don't think it has to do with structure, you know. Sometimes your overtime
Yes, it has
may
to
be
do
the
with
little
structure.
extra that needs to go to business. You see, these employees are only concerned about just at the end of the period, just go in there, get their money, and they're good. Do the work and get their money. But at the end of the day, the employer has to be working around the clock to ensure that everybody is able to get paid and to ensure that the business succeeds. And it may require you
Yes,
working
but here's the
overtime
thing.
that I can't just allow you
No, but here's the thing. No, but here's the
to
thing. The
negotiate.
employer needs to be a little more organized. The employer needs to be able to say, well, okay, Marlon, I have a lot, we got this project we're doing. I may need you to work late tomorrow night. Okay? At least I've given you 24-hour notice. But you cannot come to me at 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock on the same day and tell me you want me to work late. That is abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the employer got to do it himself and pick up the slack, then yes, he got to do that. Or he may need to bring in somebody temporarily to do that.
Okay.
So if he can afford to bring in somebody, then he can bring in somebody to work from a 4 to 8 shift.
Mm-hmm.
And pay that person for 4 hours.
Okay.
I know that a lot of people are not going to like that. And a lot of people in Guyana, especially employees in Guyana, who are intent on abusing their employees.
Mm-hmm.
Because that also contributes to the employee's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Because the employee will feel trapped, that they have nowhere to go, that they are dependent on this job, and their boss knows that I need this job, so he is going to abuse me because he knows I need this job and I can't go anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So that then makes the employee make them anxious, make them stressed, and may even cause them to be doing drugs or alcohol, or sometimes they go to sleep. They just don't want to get up out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want to be there because it's constant abuse.
So what about
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand you quite clearly. So what about the instance where somebody works a 12-hour shift and then the other person doesn't come to relieve them and they have to work through without being informed and they just have to work through. What about that instance? Should the employee just get up and go home?
No, because the employee can't leave the position vacant. So if it's a security guard, for example, and he's working from 4 in the afternoon to midnight, and his replacement does not come and report for duty at midnight, he can't leave that position. So he may need to stay and work a double. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But as he works that double, the employer should only be able to allow him to return to work the next day at 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
He must be able to have a chance to rest. And the employer needs to have a conversation with the person who did not show up for their shift.
Mm-hmm.
To understand, why is it you didn't show up for your shift from 12 to 8? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because any number of things could have happened. It could have been an accident. They could have been unwell. Could have overslept. Couldn't get transportation to come to work. Any number of things could have happened. Okay? Or they might have had a party they want to go to, and they didn't feel like going to work. Okay? Any number of reasons. But then the employer needs to address that issue, because if that continues, it becomes a problem in terms of breakdown in responsibility for that particular job. And so it may need to replace that person. who cannot come to work at the time that they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the employer may need to replace that person because you can't put pressure on the one person by having them work double shifts all the time. Because there's an issue with working overnight. Because for humans, we were not conditioned, biologically conditioned to being up at night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So when we are up at night, it disturbs our circadian rhythm, and that then impacts our ability to concentrate. And one of the things you might remember me talking about when we talked about mental illness is that if you have not slept the night before, the next day, you literally will feel as if you're drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And your judgment and your decision making and your choices will be severely impaired, and you will likely be very irritable and aggressive during the next day because you have not had enough sleep.
Awesome. And as we prepare to close, I'm going to just teach in suicide here because that is something that is very prevalent within our society. Um, when dealing with somebody with suicide, what steps do you suggest that we take to prevent suicide and to help persons get help that is needed?
Quickly, could you repeat the question because you froze for a moment?
Yes, we our internet is fluctuating. When dealing with persons who are contemplating suicide, what steps do you think we should take to save that life and ensure that the person is safe?
Well, like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, Marlon, that someone who's struggling with a mental illness is not often obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so similarly, somebody who is thinking of taking their life is not often obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Except of course that they will tell people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't look at me and say, well, oh, he looked like he can take his life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So an employee might come into work and they may be considering suicide. An employer, a business owner, might be considering suicide. A vendor might be considering suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when we had the workshop that we did with the managers at GT&T?
Mm-hmm.
And the one manager said that there was this man coming to her every month to pay his bill.
Yes.
And she thought that he was stalking her because he came to her and he always wanted to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then that 1 month she didn't see him and she found out that he took his life.
Yes.
When in fact what he was trying to do was to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm trying to suggest to you is someone who is struggling with mental illness, who is thinking about suicide, will start to tell other people. And often they may not tell people closest to them.
Interesting.
They will tell strangers. Because it's kind of a funny kind of thing. They want you to stop them, but at the same time, they don't want you to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So they will tell other people. The question, though, is are we attuned and listening to the language, to what the person says, how they say? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if your boss says to you, y'all ain't gonna see me soon, you know. Where you going? Where you going? Foreign? Nah. You know I don't like that place. But y'all ain't gonna see me soon, you know. Because the boss may be dealing with his own mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
He may be dealing with a buildup of stress that is unaddressed, that leads to anxiety, that remains unaddressed, that leads to depression, that is still unresolved. And he feels he has no one to talk to. He feels that no one understands what he's going through. So he might decide to take his life. But we may not be understanding that when he starts saying, y'all ain't gonna see me, you know. One, these days are gone. One, these days, y'all ain't. And he starts talking a lot about death and dying and making jokes. And
So can we
But
ask
because
him
we
point
don't
blank?
think
Is
about
he
it,
planning to kill
huh?
himself?
He could be.
Can we ask him point blank?
You can ask him.
Okay.
But here's the question. When you ask him that question, are prepared for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And if he says yes, do you know what else to do? Do you know what else to say? You can't just ask that question, don't have follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And similarly, if there's an employee whose behavior has suddenly shifted and changed, and understand something too. You could have an employer or an employee who just suddenly seem to be working more and harder and harder and harder. Oh, I gotta get this done. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about overtime. I just need to get this done. Hey, you're not going home.
Preparing for when they leave.
And trying to work and push themselves harder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Interesting.
So it's not cut and dried. Somebody could be like stepping back and saying, but y'all ain't gonna see me soon. And one of these days are gone. And don't, if I should die, don't cry for me. And if this, don't do that. So they're talking about death and dying. Somebody could be like that. On the flip side, somebody could be at the other extreme. And they come into work one day and they got a new hairdo. They got on a nice pair of shoes. They wear their best jewelry. You're like, well, like you're getting married. No, I just thought I'd dress up. I just thought I'd dress up and make myself look good.
They get by real.
No, it's a shit behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is not normal what they normally do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't normally come to work dressed like that. Why all of a sudden are you coming to work all dolled up and looking fancy?
Dramatic
Okay?
change.
Huh?
Dramatic change.
A dramatic change in behavior. And to be able to ask the question, what is happening? What is going on that is causing this change in behavior?
Awesome, and I'm very happy that you would have shared that. So we leave on a high note, and we're able to have some clarity, better equipped with steps to be able to interact with persons who are experiencing mental illness. I'm very happy that you were able to come and to interact with us. You would have stimulated interest within several of our viewers. I see persons are still commenting, and I believe we will have to invite you again so that we can continue our discussions, because there are many things that were said that we needed to expand on so that persons are able to understand, and the persons are furious within the chat. They are commenting left, right, and center. I'd like to acknowledge some of the persons who were very active in the chat. We had June, Asha, Jasmine T, Asha, Indra, Sharice joining from Canada, Steve. We had Joan Cherry, Aliyah, Mohammed, Shelly Mangru, Shireen, Sachin, Zayed, Malika Benjamin, Sita Prasad, Shanta Arjun, and several other persons that joined our program. And I'd like to thank you for joining and for being so well learned and sharing information that we all can hopefully get it right, particularly as we're on the verge of development, and we would want to have our respective businesses and organizations getting it right as well, being there to reach out to employees and looking after their welfare, and seeing people as individuals and seeing persons as unique sets of people who are coming with challenges and allowing them to be humans while providing a framework in which we can learn and grow together. So I'd like to thank you for taking time off from your schedule to be here with us. I'd like to also extend heartfelt thank you to you, our viewers. Thank you for joining us every Tuesday night and for interacting and for participating. I love the fact that you guys are coming and you're coming with your questions and your participating fully so that you all can grow, we all can grow together and help build Guyana and this world as we look for one Guyana and one world. I would like to encourage you to look out for our page if you know it, look out for our upcoming videos. If you know anybody who can benefit from the information that was shared here this evening, feel free to share the live stream. Feel free to comment, tag somebody's name in it, and let them know that they can participate in similar discussions every Tuesday night right here from 8:30 to 9:30. We went a bit over time, but the guys are very flexible and they were well in tune as well. They're learning. I'd like to thank our technical team for doing a phenomenal job. We've got interesting speakers lined up for you for the remainder of the month. So I'd like to encourage each and every one of you to look out for our program every Tuesday night. If you guys are interested in sponsoring our program so that it can continue, feel free to reach out to Guyanese Critic. You can reach out to myself. You can call me on 652-1959. If you would also like to have your business interview so that we can learn about your unique innovative component, reach out to me so that we can make it possible and we can have a show that everybody is able to benefit and grow together. Thank you all. Do take care and have a good rest of the night.